Mic'd up.
Three of the Rovner Report on the mic'd up platform. AJ Rovner, Steve Scianimanico. New York Rangers are right in this thing, ladies and gentlemen. 2-1-1 in their last four since we left off. A heartbreaker against Toronto at home. Then back-to-back shutouts in as many days. Jonathan Quick started off going, what do you get? 30 saves, 25? Yeah, 34 saves.
34 against Nashville.
34 against Nashville. Next day, Igor with 21, and then another heartbreaking loss. The Rangers really could have went 4-0-0 in this stretch, but winded up losing to the Capitals due to the grade 8, a late goal by Alexander Ovechkin in the third period, and then a 2-on-1 breakaway with the hated Tom Wilson putting it home. But ultimately, since we last were on, 5 points in the possible 8 they could have achieved. Steve, your thoughts?
Yeah, we left off. They played Toronto Friday night. The game played a heck of a game. Toronto held Toronto to 16 shots on goal. Igor had a sloppy play, led to one goal. Rangers couldn't get the tire. They poured some pressure on late. Had a late power play, just couldn't get the equalizer to at least get a point out of it. But a good effort overall. And then, too many chances against Nashville. I thought they gave up. Maybe they took a little too lightly. Nashville's playing a little bit better now. Nothing to play for, so maybe that is their mindset. But solid game against the Islanders. Real solid game against Washington. That was like a playoff style game. Physical. Carrick's been great. Rempe's been great. So that's the kind of game you want to see them play really every night if you can keep that intensity up. Would have liked to seen Wilson and Rempe drop them, but maybe another time. But Caps have proved all year they're for real. They're not going anywhere. Play a good team style, solid goaltending, good defense. Guys block shots, they hit. Forwards come back, so they're a tough team to play against. And like you mentioned, can't give Ovechkin any kind of room at all. The guy's unbelievable. And unfortunately, the Rangers had a chance before the Wilson goal game winner. He tried to get across, got deflected. Two guys got caught deep and led to the 2-on-1. Schneider, who I can't say anything bad about at all. I thought he committed himself a little bit early on that play, took himself out of the play and left. I think it was Strome with either an option to shoot it or pass. Nothing Igor could do about that tap in by Wilson, but good stretch. Again, the Toronto game was a tough one. They played real solid, but you move on from here, and tomorrow afternoon or Saturday afternoon, tomorrow you got 12:30 Ottawa monster game here early March.
Certainly will be a monster game. But before we get to that, definitely a couple notes I had. It was nice to see the Rangers show heart in all of these games. Sometimes when they would give up a goal or two, it just seemed like a massive implosion. But to come back against Toronto, not once but twice, ultimately losing was nice. Gave up a goal minute 47 into the game on the power play. It was a terrible penalty by Zibanejad committed, but he rebounded, scored actually also in the first period, and then a shorthanded goal by Will Cooley to knock things up with just over 16 minutes to play. I know the Rangers ultimately lost, but it was nice to see them keep it competitive throughout. I think we also have to talk about the defense. 6 goals allowed on this 4-game homestand. I mean that's phenomenal. It's 1.5 goals per game. I mean, Igor and Quick were both phenomenal. Igor gave up 4 goals in 3 starts. 6 goals in 3 starts. Quick obviously with the shutout. And then the other thing I wrote down too, I thought there was a questionable call before that breakout started against Washington. I think Zibanejad definitely could have had a penalty shot. Seemed like he was far and away ahead of everybody. I saw Laviolette certainly wanted a call, but ultimately that is not how the cookie crumbled, and Washington took this one in overtime. Anything else you want to add, Steve, about these four before we answer some questions? Then we'll dive into the trade deadline as well as the Rangers' next upcoming stretch.
Well, we talk all year about how important special teams are to the Rangers, especially, with Fox out now. They got to find power play chemistry. Zach Jones has been okay, but 0 for 4 against Washington. Inevitably, lost the game in overtime. Will, you mentioned the shorthanded goal by Cooley. Will Borgen scored a nice shorthanded goal against the Islanders. So special teams going to be important. Got to, get the power play going. We'll see what happens later on today with any trades. There's been rumor trying to pick up Paterka from Buffalo. Seems to have, I don't know much about the guy. Seems to have pretty good scoring knack though, and he doesn't play a soft game. So we'll see what happens as far as that goes. Panarin's picked up his play a little bit at an empty net goal against the Islanders. Seems to be a little bit more engaged. I'm still, not sold on his overall heart and desire to get in there in the tough times and do what you have to do. But he is hitting the score sheet. You're going to always need your best player to be on the score sheet as much as possible. Watch the San Jose Avs game last night, and haven't. I mean, not even their power play is 8 for the last 11. Colorado, which is, but even at even strength, they always put McCarr out there when McKinnon's out there. You have McCarr, McKinnon, and Nashis now on the ice at the same time. And I know it was San Jose, but it's just not fair. I mean, these guys are incredible. McCarr had 6 points. I think McKinnon had 5. I watched the game from start to finish, and now they picked up Brock Nelson, which is only going to solidify their second line and make it, a formidable second line, whoever they wind up pairing Nelson with, probably Druin and Middlestat. So yeah, they looked awfully good last. But I know it was San Jose, and poor Georgiev didn't have the return to Colorado. I'm sure that he expected.
Yeah, most certainly a big trade for Islanders fans in the NHL. This is a guy that's been an Islander since the start. Very healthy throughout his career. Has played 72 or more games every year. 901 games total, scored 295 goals, 574 points. Definitely a beloved Islander, and I think became a little bit beloved due to the Four Nations with him on the USA team. I think a lot of Rangers rallied and were rooting really hard for Brock. I knew I was, so definitely.
Solid player, under the radar type of guy. Just plays the game. Responsible in both ends. It's just a great guy to have. Team kills penalties, power play, face offs. Like I said, under the radar kind of guy. The Islanders have had a real tough stretch here, so he doesn't get too much press and deserves a little bit more. Now, in Colorado, I'm sure he'll fit in. He'll get mixed in with all those stars, but I'm sure he'll fit in fine.
And then, of course, the other trade that winded up not going through last night in the wee hours of the morning was Mikko Rantanen was most certainly going to the Dallas Stars, but that ultimately stalled, and now the Stars are willing to pay a lot of the leftover money for Rantanen, but we will see what happens there between Carolina and Dallas. But to talk about the NHL standings a little bit, it is so close. If you really take out Buffalo, which they're most definitely out, if you take Pittsburgh, who's 16th in this conference, no, yeah, 16, right? 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Yeah, 15th in this conference, and you go to Buffalo, which is the top in the wild card. They're separated by 10 points. Rangers now currently sit in the third spot, tied with Ottawa to make the postseason. They're actually only 5 points behind the Devils to get into the Metropolitan side of things. And boy, have the Rangers had help. If you look around them, Steve, there's only one other team that is on some sort of winning streak in the wild card hunt right now. That's the Islanders. The Blue Jackets have lost 2 in a row. Oh no, sorry, not around the ring. Yep, besides the Rangers. Well, Ottawa's won 1 in a row. The Columbus has lost 2 in a row. Detroit's lost 4 in a row. Montreal won. Boston 3. I mean, there's just an immense amount of help, and the Rangers have to capitalize, and that starts tomorrow with trying to beat a young, explosive Ottawa team. We'll get to that in a little bit. But for now, we'll answer your questions, and then we will really dive into maybe some potential moves. I know we brought up JJ Paterka, but we're also going to talk about Carson Soucy. We didn't talk about that. He joined the Rangers, pairing up with Will Borgen. Borgen and him played over 400 minutes together in Seattle. I saw that yesterday. And a left-handed defenseman, which the Rangers desperately needed. So, man, oh man, think about the defensive corps to start the year, and now think about all these different guys from around the league that are joining the defensive corps. It's funny because Chad Ruhwedel has never gotten a chance. He's just always been the odd guy out,
I
but
think they brought him up. They brought him up today.
doesn't mean he's gonna play. But it's
No,
just
I know. They brought him up. So, yeah, I don't know if he's gonna. He's in the plans, but they did bring him up today.
there's just been so many defensemen. Chad's never gone a shot. But anyways, let's answer your questions, and then we will go to the upcoming stretch.
Does Kreider get dealt today? Where does Miko go?
I don't think Kreider gets dealt. I think that's more of an off-season thing. I think that teams might be a little bit concerned about the injury, whether it's as severe as they say. I personally don't think it's very severe. He played very hard in the Four Nations. He played in actually a meaningless game in the Four Nations tour. Played that third game, and I think he played so well he got rewarded with playing in the title game. So I don't think Kreider's gonna go. I don't know what his role is gonna be down the stretch, but Mikko Rantanen, I think, will certainly get dealt, and will find a way to have Carolina sort things out with Dallas, and he'll ultimately go there. It seems like they're his best suitor. But Steve, give me your opinion.
Yeah, I agree with Kreider. He's got the cranky back. I don't know. I'm sure someone would be willing to take a chance on him, but not to give the Rangers what they would, want or deserve for Kreider. And he's proved himself in the playoffs. So if the Rangers have playoff aspirations, I from here, and like you've said, if it might be his time to go somewhere in the offseason, I'd hate to see number 20 in any other uniform but a Ranger, but we'll see how that plays out. Um, Dallas has looked awfully good. This kid Wyatt Johnson has been on fire. So I'm sure they're looking to do whatever they can to give them what they feel is going to push them across the finish line. But they look awfully good lately. So I'm sure they'll try and get that deal done as well.
Yeah, speaking about Rantanen a little bit, was having one heck of a year for Colorado. I mean, he's had one heck of a career. I mean, he's been phenomenal, well over a point per game player, but he hasn't been very good though in Carolina. 6 points,
6 points, yeah.
and Carolina's a phenomenal team, but that don't really mean anything. Sometimes just don't blend with the men around you, and he has it -3. He hasn't been a minus since 2019, where he was a -2. So it doesn't seem like the Ranton and Kane's relationship ever turned out to be anything big. They were saying that might be the biggest in-season blockbuster in possibly a decade, and all signs point to right now that Colorado got the better end of that, even though Rantanen is the best player in the deal, especially if he gets dealt. Then Colorado's like, oh my goodness, did we nail that one? But I think we got another Miko question.
Hearing Rantanen and Paterka are possibly on the table for the Rangers. What do you guys think? I would love Rantanen. So, who knows? We'll see today.
Yeah, JJ Paterka, we'll talk about him a little bit, and then I'll let Steve chip in. A guy that was drafted in the second round of the 2020 NHL entry draft. That's, of course, the year that the Rangers won the draft lottery and took Alexis Lafreniere. He's improved every year, Steve. Didn't get much work in the 2021 season, had 32 points in 2022-23, then went up to 50, and now he's already got 51 in 59 games. Could easily get to 30 goals. He's got 19 of them. plays on the power play. He's got 8 power play assists. He's got 4 power play goals. He's a -1 on a very bad team, a team that's 24, 31, and 6. From what I'm looking here, it doesn't seem like too bad of a pickup. Young kid, 23. I've heard that Lafreniere is certainly a name that's been thrown around. I don't know necessarily how much of the salary the Rangers will have to retain. It's a little bit of a more longer deal, but I've heard his name. And of course, Rantanen, and oh my goodness, would that really boost things, but I just don't know at what price. But Steve, give me your thoughts on both.
Yeah, as I mentioned, I like Paterka's game. 51 points, gets 18 minutes of ice time a game, so he plays some decent minutes. Price for him would be considerably less than for Rantanen, obviously, and if they got Rantanen, I'm sure that would be a hit to the salary cap as well. But and listen, if you can get Rantanen, you go out and get guys proven himself over the years to be one of the best players there is. Another guy that kind of played in the shadows of Makar and McKinnon, but geez, man, his numbers speak for themselves. So we'll see what happens, but I wouldn't mind Paterka. I think he's a solid player and would improve the team. So we'll see what happens. 6 o'clock by 6 o'clock tonight. I guess it's 3 o'clock. But like I mentioned last week, those trades keep going until the early evening.
Yeah, could be a lot of flights going out of Ottawa tonight, going to different locations. I know that there's been numerous rumors. The Sporting News is a big one that came out with that if the Rangers were to ultimately acquire Rantanen, Lafreniere will most certainly be dealt. And then you also have to know that they'll want either Gabriel Perreault or Brandon Hoffman in that deal. Perot, obviously, the Rangers' prized possession, their farm system. It's only a matter of time until he touches the Garden Ice or goes to play for another NHL team. If he goes to San Jose, he might be on their first power play unit. So, just a young kid waiting for his chance. But there's also been rumors that Cooley could be going in the Rantanen deal. We just keep on looking around. So it should definitely be an interesting couple of hours for hockey fans and especially Rangers fans. I was talking about with some people yesterday. This is the exact situation the Mets were in at the trade deadline, almost identical. On the cusp of making the postseason, pretty much in the wild card hunt, can't win the division, and now you've showed some heart over the stretch before the deadline to the point where jury's still going to try and win this year. The Rangers go 0-4-0 in this 4-game homestand. The Rangers might be selling already. They'd be, out of it. So this is definitely a stretch where the Rangers are going to try and get better for now and not necessarily the future, which makes me excited for the home stretch with just over a month to go. 2 more questions.
Do you think that the trades and the changes that the Rangers have made will be enough for them to make a run for the playoffs?
I think it totally depends on what they do today. They've certainly made some great moves. Vakanainen, I think, has been strong. I think Will Borgen's been excellent. I don't know if he'll live up to that contract and the money we're going to pay him. But of course, JT Miller, what can you say? This guy has just been a force on both ends. He'll fight, he'll throw the body. Love everything about his game. So, Steve, you can answer that one too.
Yeah, I don't know if this team right now has what it takes to, if they make the playoffs, do very much damage. I like the compete level they played against Washington. That might be a first round matchup. Certainly like to see some improvement with the trades today. So we'll see how that goes. But anytime you have Shesterkin in net, he proved last year how great he can be, how hot he can be. But he still wasn't able to get them past Florida. They were just too tough. And right now, I don't think they have enough to take them anywhere deep in the playoffs. So let's see what the next 6-7 hours brings.
Yeah, I could certainly tell you that in my lifetime, I don't know if I've ever seen a streakier goalie than Igor Shesterkin. There are some games where this guy looks lost, and there's some games where you can't score on him. So if he plays like he did in the playoffs last year, I give the Rangers a shot against anybody because he was a brick wall getting attacked by Florida. Oh my goodness, for the Rangers getting skated around by the Panthers. But unironically, it would be the same exact thing as last year. As Steve noted, Washington found their way to creep into the playoffs. They were the 8th seed. The Rangers won the President's Trophy. As of right now, Washington would win the Eastern Conference. They're 2 points behind the President's Trophy. And it looks like the Rangers are going to have to find a way to squeak into the playoffs as the 8th seed. So as Steve said, might have the exact reverse. And we will see how it all plays out. One more question, a Yankees question. So, Steve, it's all you. And then we will move on to this Rangers upcoming stretch.
Also, Yankees question: who do you think the Yankees should use at leadoff? Would it be Dominguez? Would it be Volpe? Or would it be Jazz Chisholm? What are you thinking?
Right now, I would give the nod to Volpe. He got a little more disciplined at the plate last year. His speed off the lineup. Dominguez, I'm soured on the guy. I'm going to give him every chance he can have. He's had a slow start. I think 4 for 23 in the spring. Read today in the Post where Cashman said he's going to be given every opportunity in left field to straighten out any issues he might have. I always thought that that's kind of stuff was up to the coach to make the decisions, but maybe it's just Cashman, having conversation with Boone. But I did read that today, so I don't see him being there. Chisholm could fit the slot, but he's not a disciplined leadoff hitter, so I'm going to go with Volpe for right now. I know I read something where Wells could be put in there because he's got a good eye at the plate discipline, but I don't know if there's ever been. Well, I can't say there's never been a catcher off. I think Brian Downing back in the '70s, early leadoff hitter. Craig Biggio, I guess, comes to mind too, but Wells wouldn't be the kind of guy going to lead off for the Yankees. So right now, it's going to Volpe for me. I like his approach. I like his speed, and he's improving every year.
Yeah, it's just that I think that's definitely the way to go. I mean, I certainly don't have the Yankees knowledge that you do. The only thing that scares me a little bit, he has a career 288 on base percentage. He's walked only 94 times in 1,290 plate appearances, and he strikes out a ton, 323 strikeouts. However, in the playoffs, was an on base machine, had a 407 on base percentage, had a 286 average. He was phenomenal in the postseason for a kid that's going to be only 24 years old this calendar year. But let's go back to hockey. Once again, Rangers 67 points, 20 games to go. Trade deadline in a little bit under 5 hours. They're 31, 26, and 5. Playing an Ottawa team that's pursuing a postseason berth as we are. Let's talk about them a little bit. We'll go over the Ottawa Senators today, as well as the Columbus Blue Jackets. Does it get any bigger, Steve? You're playing the number 1 wild card team. You're playing the number 2 wild card team. You could be in the first wild card spot by weekend's end. You could be 4 points behind each. So it really does not get much bigger than this. It's going to be a back-to-back for New York. They'll play Ottawa at 12:30 tomorrow. Then they'll come home to play Columbus at 6. And then the Rangers go back on the road for Winnipeg and Minnesota before we will wrap things up. So let's start with Ottawa. They're 31, 25, and 5. They've won 2 of their last 3. Before that, they lost 5 in a row. So they're a little bit cold right now, winning 2 of their last 7. They're led by Tim Stetzel, Drake Batherson, Brady Tkachuk. These kids are all super young, Steve. Jake Sanderson as well, 22 years old. They're so young, fast. They're going to be good for a long time. Stetzel has 64 points in 61 games. Tkachuk, 47 and 59. Batherson, 49 and 61. They spread the wealth around. They have 3 different guys with 20 goals already, 5 guys with 16 or more. Goaltending wise, Linus Olmark, they've needed a goalie for a really long time. Now they got one, even with the 272 goals against average, a very impressive 910 save percentage. It's going to be a tough task for the Rangers to keep up with the speed. Maybe Washington and their athleticism will help a little bit, but it's going to be a true test for New York in just over 24 hours, Steve.
Yeah, as you mentioned, Ottawa's a good, young, fast, hungry team. They, have Claude Giroux for the veteran leadership also, and Olmark's, a step up over the years in goal. So it'll be a good game, big test. They spread the scoring out, and I don't know Jake Sanderson. Every time I look in the paper, I get 2 or 3 points a game lately. I'm looking 42 points in 60 games now, so they have to watch out for him on the back line as well. But looking forward to a nice matinee tomorrow.
Yeah, great point about Claude Giroux. I just did a little bit of mental math too. Since he became a full-time NHL player in 2009, he's missed 27 games. That's just an impressive stat for a guy who's now 37 years old. Certainly winding down, though. His third full year in Ottawa, productions went down every year. But still very capable, scored just around 20 goals. But, of course, there's way bigger names for the long time Flyers captain. Him and Jacob Voracek were killing Henrik for years. Then we will move on to the Columbus Blue Jackets. What a story they are. Maybe it's the Johnny Gaudreau effect because nobody could have expected this. Sports is a funny way. It's a funny game sometimes. Of course, the most skilled player, most definitely on that roster, dies in a freak bike accident less than 24 hours the before his sister's wedding. Both him and his brother riding on the sidewalk with helmets, nothing unsafe, no alcohol, no drugs, just getting exercise in on a nice day. And a drunk driver took their life. But I have to say, the NHL, where you get questioned sometimes with commissioners or what they do, they've been first class for the Goodrow family all year. Retired his number, the Four Nations, which was run by the NHL. His jersey was in the locker room. They've honored him at every road game. Most recently, they had the Goodrow family walk out the Blue Jackets at the Winter Classic or the outdoor game that was just played. What an inspiring win that was, come from behind against Detroit. But to talk about this team, it's been a heck of a story. They've won 4 of their last 6, however, got dominated in their last 2 with a little Florida stretch. They got dominated, as I just said, 9-2 in those games. They're led by Zach Werenski, who you love, Steve. He's a plus 13. He's got 66 points in 61 games. Kirill Marchenko, who's having a big year, 24 goals, 36 assists. Kent Johnson, Dmitry Voronta both have 20 goals. It's a very, very good young Columbus team. Elvis Merzlikins, still not, I don't think he's ever really lived up to his name, even in a year with success. He's got about a 3 goals against average and an 897 save percentage. I remember when this guy was going to be the next big thing. But in his career so far, he's got over a 3.1 goals against average. So let's talk about Columbus, a team that's certainly playing with a chip on their shoulder and certainly in the race to have a postseason berth.
Yeah, Merzlikins is their top guy. Started 9 of the last 10. As you mentioned, doesn't put up great numbers, but this year is found ways to win games, and I guess that's what it's all about. But as I mentioned last week, they have a tough schedule, the toughest of all the teams contending for the 2 wild card spots. The next 5 games: 2 against the Devils, 2 against the Rangers, and Vegas. And then after that stretch, they play Florida. So next 6: 2 Rangers, 2 Devils, Vegas, and Florida. So they might be one of the teams that after a great season, and as you mentioned, coming off all the emotions and everything of what happened in the before the season started, they might be a team that runs out of gas late. They're very young. to happen with teams like this. We'll see what happens. They're a great story. I'd love to see them and the Rangers get in if I had, my choices on that. But yeah, they're a good team. They score a ton of goals. I don't know where all this goal scoring came from, but they spread it around. They're a good skating team. They don't defend great, although the last game against the Rangers, the Rangers beat them 4-3, but the at the Garden was a tight checking, low scoring game. So see what happens Sunday, early start at MSG, 6:00. Should be a great weekend for Ranger hockey.
Certainly
Oh,
should. And we just
hey,
had a
hey,
trade in the NHL.
before we move on, we gotta, can't mention the Devils who are on some kind of tailspin.
Jack Hughes out for the
The
year.
year. I mean, they got Markstrom back, which is obviously a huge improvement for them. But they're going to be exploring to make the playoffs. I think they have 72 points. They're in a good position right now, but there's plenty of hockey left, so they got to find something to turn their ship around too.
And certainly lost one of the most talented players in hockey, Jack Hughes, for the season. Just had a trade in the NHL. Anthony Beauvillier, longtime New York Islander, will get shipped to the Washington Capitals. We don't know the return, but that's official. Beauvillier this year, 20 points in 63 games, does have 13 goals. This is a Pittsburgh team that got off to a red-hot start and has now fell deep into the barrels of playoff consideration, but that is a trade that was just made. I bet there'll be bigger ones, but pretty cool to have breaking news on the show, and that's what we had. So, Rangers will play Winnipeg next. Rangers all the way back. I believe you were at that game, Steve, on November 12th. This was a team that came into the Garden at 14-1-0. Rangers battled with them for as long as they could have felt like. We're down 4-3 after Capo made it a game in the third period with just over 18 minutes to go. But Vladislav Namestnikov, ex-Ranger, made it 5-3 in an empty netter, sunk them. But this is a Winnipeg team that's been the best team in hockey for the majority of the year, and that hasn't really changed. They have lost 3 of their last 4, but before losing 3 of their last 4, they won 11 in a row. So certainly a streaky team. They were 14-1-0 at one point. They won 11 in a row just recently. They're led by Kyle Connor and Mark Scheifele, both with over 70 points, both with over 30 goals, both with over 35 assists. Gabriel Velarde and Nikolai Ehlers both also have 20 goals. This is a team that the worst plus minus for a guy that's played over 58 games or more is a -1. Everybody else is even or better. They're just strong top to bottom. They're led by the best goaltender in the world, in my opinion. These numbers are just dumb, Steve. 36, 8, and 3. He's got a 201 goals against average, a 926 save percentage, slam dunk Vezina winner. I mean, this team could certainly win the Stanley Cup.
Yep, they had an easy time with the Flyers yesterday with Mike Comrie in net. Yeah, stay out of the box because they have power play. May not be on par with the Avs, but it's pretty close up there with Morrissey, quarterback in the point. And Scheifele's a big body up, high slot, great passer, great hands. Connor, great knack for scoring. He's kind of like Jake Getzel, anywhere around the net. The guy's lethal. So yeah, great team. Probably the front runner to win the cup right now.
And you brought up Eric Comrie. His numbers are excellent too. Even though he's 7, 8, and 1, this guy's got a 246
What
goals against average.
I call Mike Comrie. I think there was a Mike Comrie in the NHL a long time ago.
Right, Eric Comrie. Yes. Yeah, but I mean, he's got great numbers too. 246, 914 line. I mean, those are starter numbers for the backup for the Winnipeg Jets. So certainly will be a true test for New York.
Hey, let ex-Ranger Neil Pionk with 37 points and a +19. He's had a real resurgent year over there too. Second power play unit.
Yeah, Pionk was a really strong Ranger, played in those down years right at the back end of Henrik's career. But since joining Winnipeg, has had at least 30 points in every season, well on his way to having the most goals in his NHL career. Plus 19, as you said, that would be a personal best as well. Also averaging over 22 minutes a game. So good for Neil. Still really young, probably right in the prime, 29 years old. I wouldn't say really young, but certainly young for being in your seventh year. And can't believe he was a Ranger already almost a decade ago. Kind of crazy to think about. It'll be the eighth season next year without Pionk being a blue shirt. But the last game we cover, I mean, these are all teams that are either best in hockey in a playoff spot. And it won't get any easier because it will get easier. The Rangers will go to Minnesota. Doesn't get much easier, but it gets 14 points easier. A lot of times I said easier, but back-to-back wins for Minnesota. They have won 5 of their last 8. They beat the Bruins 1-0. Couple nights ago, beat the Kraken 4-3. It's the farewell tour for Marc-Andre Fleury, now the backup, but best American-born goaltender, I think, in history. I mean, sorry, not American-born. Sorry, he's not American-born. One of the best goaltenders in history. 12-7-1 this year at the 276 goals against average, 904 save percentage. Philip Gustafson's their starter, 262, 914, 24, 13, and 3. Kirill Kaprizov hasn't been around all year, longer out than originally expected. Was on fire before going down, but it hasn't really stopped the Wild from continuing to play well. It's kind of crazy, Steve, that Kaprizov had 52 points in 37 games and was just passed by Matt Boldy for the point lead on the roster.
Yeah, that's pretty unbelievable.
Yeah, Boldy's got 53
guys,
points.
guys missed 5 games.
Yep. So he has missed 25 games, Kaprizov, and is still only 1 point behind being the leader. Kaprizov also leads the team in plus minus with 19. He leads the team in goals with 23. He's still third on the team in assists. So obviously a tremendous loss for the Wild, but they have Matt Boldy and Marco Rossi, both with over 20 goals. It's more of a spread the wealth kind of team. Good to see Matt Zuccarello having a nice year. Matt has 40 points in 49 games, was a beloved Ranger. He hasn't been a Ranger for already 9 years.
Woo!
So
Holy cow.
time certainly flies for the Ranger in the 2017 season. But he's been on the Wild now for 6 years. Henrik's best friend here. Certainly will be another tough test for the Rangers. 4 games in a row against teams in the postseason. We'll see what they got. Tell me about Minnesota.
Yeah, Minnesota is a funny team. Like, it's a team you don't think about as one of the top teams, but they're solidified in the playoffs right now. Thinking third place in their division, and nowhere near in any kind of danger of not making the playoffs. I think they'll probably look to maybe pick up a little offense today. Uh, Zuccarello, like you mentioned, nice numbers. He missed about 12 games this year. He's more the setup guy in the power play. Great pass, great vision. That's the guy that we remember from the Rangers as well. So yeah, they're a funny team. You don't fear too many guys, them, but they're a good, strong team. Play hard, and good balance on their team. And Brock Faber's on the point of the power play. Good young kid, and Gustafson's their number one. But anytime Fleury's in there, he could steal a game for you.
No doubt about it. And just another note I want to add, Rangers will be playing some of the best teams at home in the league. Winnipeg has played 32 home games. They've only had 5 where they haven't registered a point. They'll go also to Columbus. They've played 30 home games, only 6 where they haven't registered a point. So certainly will be a difficult test for New York. They'll play 2 games against Columbus, as we said, one on the road, one at home. They'll also play at Minnesota and at Winnipeg. So certainly not an easy stretch for New York. I would say you have to probably take 2 of these to hang around, but I mean 3 would be a gift. But certainly with 20 games to go, the Rangers will have to play 500 or better to get in. Any last thoughts?
We failed to mention Boston Bruins have lost 8 of the last, and pretty much if you look at the numbers now, they've had the most games played. Looks like they might be one team that might not have any kind of playoff aspirations anymore at this point. That's a terrible stretch, and now they got Brad Marchand out, so they don't look like they're going to have a rare year without the playoffs. Looks like right now.
Yeah, second worst goal differential in the Eastern Conference as well. Only team worse is the Penguins. Believe it or not, the Sabres only have a negative 18 goal differential, even though they're 24, 31, and 6. So a lot of
They're a weird team. Some games they light the scoreboard up. They score a ton of goals. They beat the Rangers 8-2.
Yep.
That game after the tournament. So yeah, weird team, but another year up in Buffalo, New York. No playoffs. It's been some stretch for them too. And I'm looking here at the Islanders. They're 4 points behind the Senators with the same amount of games played, and it looks like they're sellers. It's very strange.
Yep, and I would have to assume Boston's also going to be sellers, as you said. I remember watching a couple press interviews, and they even said on the Four Nations, if you're watching it, that the GM of that team was actually, along with Jerry, was the Boston GM. I forget his name, but he said depending on this next stretch will really make us sellers or not. And I'd have to assume that this Boston window is kind of closing now. As the Rangers is, the Rangers might have they're on their last legs, they're on their final lap, but it certainly seems as though Boston's window has closed. It really seemed like it was over after getting upset by Florida after having, I believe, the most points in a season history, or second, 2 seasons ago.
Yeah, Patrice Bergeron, tough guy to replace. Guys, was a great hockey player. They have some good young players, Boston, but I think it's rebuild time, as you mentioned.
Yeah.
And let's not, how about Tampa Bay? They have their winning ways. Picked up Yanni Gord and Bjorkstrom from Seattle. He's a guy that scores 20 goals. He's got a good knack around net. Going to help the second power play unit. Yanni Gord, ex Tampa guy, won some cups over there. Just a nice guy to have. I would have loved to see the Rangers pick a kid like him up. But, Tampa's going to be one of those teams. If Vasilevsky,
Yep.
he's been playing great lately. Although Hedman did leave 3 minutes into the game yesterday. That would be a loss if he's out for any length of time. But don't count Tampa Bay out.
Yeah, anytime you got Vasilevsky in net, you got a shot. Going back to his Vezina numbers, I believe he'll probably be the runner-up to Hellebuck, but 30, 16, and 3, 218, 922. First ballot Hall of Famer is the Lightning goaltender. Once again, New York Rangers trade deadline today. A point out of the playoffs, or they tied for playoffs. Now, a point out of the playoffs.
No, they're tied with Ottawa.
Tied, right. Tied with the tiebreaker, going to Ottawa.
One less game played,
Yep.
so
Yep.
tomorrow's a huge swing.
Yeah, will be. It could easily be a 4-point swing in a good way for New York. It's really an 8-point swing. Let's be completely honest here. It is just tremendously huge 30 plus hours for the Rangers when it comes to the trade deadline, when it comes to these next 2 opponents. Really need a split at a minimum. But trade deadline 2, Rangers have already made a ton of acquisitions this year. Let some longtime players go. I mean, if you just think about it, Capo Caco, Jacob Trouba, Philip Hedl, Ryan Lindgren, Jimmy Vesey. These are guys that have been Rangers for close to a decade. And acquiring Urho Vakanainen, Will Borgen, JT Miller, Calvin DeHaan. Oh, I love the guy. Oh, we didn't talk about that. Rangers did acquire Calvin DeHaan, and still don't know his name, but I've loved this play. The center that we got, I think he's been awesome throwing the body. Made a couple nice blocks in his debut. Yuso Parsonen, I'm going to say is his name, but again, a little bit over 10 minutes a game. I really like the way he's looked for New York up to this point.
And we failed to bring up the kid they got from, not the kid, he's 29, from Vancouver.
Oh, Carson Soucy, right. We were also going to talk about that, so you can't remember everything. Soucy comes over from Vancouver, a little bit of an older player, 30 years old now. Having a down year this year, certainly. He's always been a plus, at least a +7 in his career. This year, he's a -13 on Vancouver. Vancouver's really struggling. I mean, they're right in the playoff hunt, but been a little cold. 28, 22, and 11 now. Durable, plays a lot. Won't play on the power play for you. Was
Big
playing.
guy, 5'2", he's listed as.
Yeah, plays over 18 minutes a game. Seems like a bottom two defenseman. Maybe they'll pair him up with Borgen. We'll see. But this team could look a lot different. Keandre Miller's name's been thrown around. Lafreniere, Offman, Cooley, Perot. We will see. It's definitely an exciting time. It's a nerve-wracking time. But home stretch, 20 games to go. Trade deadline on the horizon. Steve, any last thoughts?
No, it's going to be a fun stretch until we meet again next Friday. A lot going to go on in the next few hours, and then, like you said, great weekend. Hopefully, Rangers look good and get 4 points, and so help their playoff cause. But yeah, a lot of stuff going on. Good time of year.
Certainly a period that could change the landscape of New York Rangers hockey this year and for years to come. There's no doubt about it. No, the team is more than capable of making a run. A lot of talent still on that roster, but we will see.
I don't think I've ever, and I've been a fan a long time, been around a team that has made this many player personnel moves in a year, 60 something games. It's been unbelievable.
Yeah, it's been a carousel for this New York Rangers team, and it seems like it's not powering off yet. Episode 43 of the Rovner Report. AJ Rovner, Steve Scianimanico. We will see you next Friday. Always a pleasure. All the best. Have a great weekend. Let's go Rangers.